What's up, everybody? We are back once again with another barber tutorial, and today we got my man Lance in the chair. Lance is going to get a 1.5 all over to keep it dark, and then we're going to do a high taper on the side, clean up the beard, all that good stuff. So I started first by combing the hair in the direction of his growth pattern. Now I'm going to do the 1.5 guard with the grain all over. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and create our first guideline. I'm gonna start it right at the crease of the ear there at the very top, and I'm gonna cut off the whole C-cup. So we're gonna end it at the end of the vertical bar. And as you can see, I put a little slight curve on it. Now I have a number 1 guard on my wahl seniors, fully open, and I'm kind of following that same initial guideline that I put in. And I'm just going with the grain on that. So first I'll keep it open, then I'll run over it a second pass with it fully closed, and then I'll drop a little bit lower, do the same thing with the open blade. Now that I did that, I'm going to come up with my open blade, no guard, about 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to close it halfway, drop below the first guideline, and fade up between, like halfway between the first guideline and the second guideline. And then I'll close it all the way up, just knocking out that bottom line. So far so good, pretty easy, right? So I'll come in and tap with the corners at that line just to make sure we get that line out. And as you know, I always start off first with a rough draft. I want to get through the haircut, then we'll come back and work on the details. So now that I've blended out that first guideline, I'm going to come in going against the grain with the number 1 open. And I just go up until I feel like it's blending into that 1.5 that we originally started with. And obviously whenever I was going down with the number 1 with the grain and then going down with just the open blade, it kind of really set me up for a real easy blend. So now we close the number 1, drop a little bit lower, starting under that second guideline and just kind of blending into where we just did that 1 open. Sometimes that doesn't get the second guideline fully out. However, we'll come in with a 1/2 guard and we'll go ahead and knock that out. While I'm on this side and I have the number 1 on there, I was just going to go ahead and fade the beard. Whenever I fade, I like to go down first, and then I'll go in with the blade fully open with that number 1 guard, and then I'll close it, and then I'll go to my next guard, which is the 1/2 guard. And I usually do the 1/2 guard halfway open, and I'm just working my way up as I'm blending. This is kind of like a reverse fade on the beard, and I'll take that off and just blend it all the way out. So I'll start with the blade fully open, then halfway, and then close it all the way as I'm working my way up to erasing that first guideline. Usually I'll go ahead and just, if I have like the 1/2 guard on, then I'll go up to the hair right there and I'll start working on that after I hit the beard, or vice versa. However, I just took the guard off, finished it out, and now put the guard back on. So with the 1/2 guard, to really attack this line, I always like to do my 1/2 guard like either halfway open or 3/4 of the way open, and then I'll start working the blade closed as needed. So once again, I'll attack this line with it 3/4 of the way open or halfway open, not fully open, and then I'll close it as needed, you know, to take that line out. Once again, whenever I attack a haircut, I'm not trying to perfect it on the first round. I'm just getting in, I'm laying a nice rough draft. I try to do this pretty quick, and then I'll come back at the end and detail the blend. All right, so we're starting to get it together. Not perfect, but it's a good rough draft. And now we come in with the balding shaver, and now we hit that up. the shaver that I was using there was the FX3 babyliss shaver, the new one. It is fire. It is, in my opinion, the best shaver out. So now in the back, we're gonna go ahead and, you know, start our first guideline, bald out the bottom. I usually don't like to do the shaver on the back of the neck when it comes to people with a more curly textured hair, because sometimes you get bumps and things like that. If they prefer it, I'll give it to them, but I like to ask the customer, and a lot of times we just stay away from that. So as you can see, I'm doing the same thing on the back that I did on the side. I closed the number 1, and I just went down with the grain underneath that 1.5. Now I'm coming up, creating my second guideline with the blade fully open, no guard. So once again, that was fully open. I just closed it halfway. So now I'm gonna drop below that first guideline, start flicking up towards that guideline. Not gonna go all the way up where I went with the blade fully open. I'm gonna go about halfway. So blade is halfway open, I'm going halfway up. Now I close it all the way. I'm just gonna tap at that bottom line, just knock it out real quick. A lot of people ask, do I zero gap my clippers? I zero gap everything. I like to zero gap. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put the number 1 guard on, fully open, and I'm going to kind of take it right up to the occipital bone there, and I'll come back in with a 1.5 and knock that out. But I go through, create that, you know, second guideline, and then I close that and I start working on that second guideline. I don't go all the way up to the line that I created just now with the 1 open. Once I close it, I'll go about halfway up. And I just keep working at that second guideline to try to get it out. More than likely, you won't get it out. So you come back with your half guard, and then you just open it about 3/4 of the way or halfway, and then you open it and close it as needed. Once again, I usually very rarely open my half guard all the way. And I just like to use the corners of the blade, and just in these areas when I'm working more of the shorter guards, I like to take a little bit more time and be a little bit more easy and use a lot more corners to make sure that I'm not digging in and creating new lines, right? So once again, what is my mind set on? It's set on just knocking out the rough draft. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be decent, right? It has to start flowing together, and then we can work on details later. So now I got the 1.5 guard on, and I'm just going to go ahead and try to blend out that line. And remember, we had a 1.5 guard going with the grain all over the head. Now I'm going against the grain in this area with that 1.5, just kind of flicking into that 1.5 with the grain. So now I close that 1.5, and I just start trying to work on those dark areas, and then I'll come back in with the 1 open and try to work on those dark areas again, because the 1.5 close, it's not going to do the job to blend it all in perfectly. So as you can see, I have my 1 guard on. I'm going to open it up all the way, just kind of flick at those dark spots, and just, you know, do my best to get a decent blend. And the reason I do this, I feel like it helps me move through the haircut quicker. And when you're in a position where you have all kind of people waiting on you and you're booked out, and you have, you know, appointment after appointment, you want to get through it as quick as possible. So if you move through the steps really quick, it'll save you a lot of time. And then with the leftover time that you have, work on those details, clean it up. But if the blend is looking decent, you know, even if you have to stop a little early, it's still a nice haircut, but you ain't gonna be stuck, you know. So we're doing the same thing on this side that we did on the other side. This time I kind of bypassed the 1 going down, and I jumped straight into the open blade, no guard going down. And then I'm just gonna turn around and do the same thing, you know, start below the guideline, flicking up all the way open, then I close it halfway, starting below the guideline, flicking up, and then I close it all the way, kind of hitting that line with the corners, knocking it out. Then I'll jump into my one fully open, create that next guideline. Once I push that up a little bit, I'll just close it all the way. Usually when I have my guards on, I've said this before, I usually just open and close when I have a guard on, unless it's a half guard. But all the bigger guards from one up, it's usually open all the way or closed. When I have no guard on, that's whenever I'll start working, you know, open, halfway open, and closed. So now I have the 1.5 guard on there, and I came up just blending right into the 1.5 we did going with the grain. You know, then I was going up against the grain. And because I still had a little bulk, I turned it around and, you know, went with the grain again. And I just did the same thing with the number 1 guard. And I'll open it, and I'll close it if need be. And now I've got my half guard on. Half is halfway open. And I'm just going to start attacking anything that I see that's not really tied together. Once again, not going for perfection. We're just going for a nice clean fade, and we'll do the detail work later. So on his edge, I brushed everything down. And if you notice, when I start working on the edges, man, I'm brushing. And then I'll start in the middle of his edge and work my way to each corner. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look really sharp and crisp because I'm trying to keep that hairline as low as possible. I know I'll throw some color enhancement on there, and I know that I'll put some fibers. So I want to extend that hairline down as far as possible, but get it straight as possible. So I'm getting it as straight as possible, but there's some little light hairs that you really can't see in the camera, you know, and then there's the real dark patches. I'm just trying to keep it as low as possible so it doesn't, you know, look like it's pushed back. On this side, it was kind of pushed back a little bit, so I wanted to bring that vertical bar kind of back out some. So I was trying to hit that really lightly. Now we'll go ahead and clean up the line around the, you know, back of the neck and around the ear, and I pull that ear down, you know, and just go ahead and kind of rest my hand on my other finger that I have pulling the hair down, so it gives me some stability. And then I just constantly, you know, brush the hair and line it up. As you can see, I kind of tapered the beard and I lined it up on the other side. I didn't do this side yet as far as lining it up, but see, I'm gonna brush and hit the line. Once I hit the line, I'll brush it again just to make sure I got all the little hairs pulled down, you know. And if some look like they're fighting against me or resisting, I keep brushing just to make sure we get a nice clean line. So now that we got everything lined up, I did the beard, didn't have time to really show you guys on this, but now I'm gonna go ahead and hit them with that color enhancement. This is my Sean Cuts Hair color card. You can order one of those off of tune45.com or hit up Sean, and you can order one from him as well. As you can see, mine is used quite a bit. I need to wash that off. I've got several new ones, I just haven't broke them out yet. And just here's a little tip: make sure you always spray on the same side, because if you flip it over and use the other side, you'll get color all over your client. That's not a good thing. So now I'm hitting them up with the hairspray, and we're gonna throw some hair fibers on there. Had a little bit extra, you know, kind of in the nozzle there, kind of spit out, but that's okay. I like to put on a decent amount of hair fibers, and then I'll spray the hairspray again. And I'm being generous with that hairspray because I know whenever I clean up the top, I like the hairs to be a little firm, and two, I want it to really hold that fiber in for quite some time. And as you can see, I was using the blow dryer to just kind of heat that up. I don't do it on full blast. I like to kind of, you know, have it on halfway, and then, you know, gently just kind of on. I got the heat on, you know, all the way, but the strength of the wind, I only do it like halfway. And I was using the new Babyliss Gold blow dryer, which I love. Shout out to Dennis for sending that to me. Thank you very much. And once I re-edge everything and get the hair fibers off his head, then I come around and I'll go ahead and just start lining everything up. while I was lining him up and starting to, you know, work on the details, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm working on the details. But while I was doing that, I had a special guest unexpectedly stop by and show some love, man, and talk for a little bit. You know, but you'll see him in just a moment. But anyways, so I'm just coming in very gently with my JRL 1000s, or those may be the 1040s. I really like these when it comes to detail work. I feel like they have a real soft blade, like a soft blend. So, and then you can adjust the speed. So if you want to set it on low or something, and you just start, man, just working those details. If you see some dark spots, hit those, knock out any lines. But also, one of the things that I've showed you in the last video, I like to flip this over and I'll open it all the way, and I kind of just drag it, and I'll tap and drag, and to me it feels like it helps to soften that blend, man, to get it looking blurry. So as you can see, this thing's starting to come together. But man, Nello Blendz.
Nello Blendz. I had to come show some love to my people over here at Headlines, man.
Yeah, Nello Blendz is a dope dude. So now I'm coming in and just hitting it with the shears, hitting all the loose hairs. Then I'll freehand, and this is where the big dollars come in, fellas. You know, when you just take your time, knock it out real fast, but then you take your time to clean up all the little, you know, the loose hairs and touch up that blend, and you know, it'll come together. If you're not following me on Instagram, you could do that at S.Craft_Blendz. Until next time, guys, God bless you guys. Peace.